You will celebrate privately or maybe even publicly. That says quite a bit about your true purpose and intentions, which have nothing to do with actual or real inclusivity. Some of you are smart enough to predict that this separation precedes legal action I am starting against you. For the last 18 months, you have tried to silence me, dismissed my perspective, given me the runaround, and literally refused to allow my requested agenda items. In a few cases, I believe your actions were illegal. Often they violated reasonable and decent practice for a school committee. Consistently, your actions have been disrespectful and dismissive. Your worst offense, however, has been your blatant disregard for hundreds of parents and community members who have attended our meetings over the last several months. When their opinions were different than yours, you swiftly and strategically pushed people aside, most certainly thinking that you know best and this is for everyone's good. I disagree, and I believe that you forgot who you work for. It is not an honor to serve with this committee, but is increasingly becoming a source of embarrassment. I'm not leaving the school or the district or abandoning my commitment to represent the quiet majority in our district. I'm just moving my voice to the other side of the table. 2 minutes during each meeting for public comment will be more than you have previously allowed me on several issues I have brought up. Our superintendent nods politely while already dismissing the concerns of stakeholders. The committee chair has overstepped her bounds in shutting out dissenting voices. I have been lied to, and the public has too. You have lost the trust of many. I disagree with many of this committee's votes on pandemic protocol, masking mandates, racially divisive agendas, curriculum choices, and policies. Voting no, often by myself, is not enough. I don't want to continue to have any part of this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Holly Hopkins, Hopkinton, Rhode Island. That was stunning, and we're all a little less for that. And maybe some of you hopefully will realize that, but I can echo all of those sentiments. I know there have been illegal things going on. I am the target of some of those things. I know about the Google Vault of information that was taken off of my Facebook page. I was cyber stalked, and there is a vault of information that has been taken and collected along with all the parents' names. Mrs. Picard knows about it, Miss Linda Lyle, Lisa Macaruso, and Catherine Guisti. I fulfilled an APRA request, and all of your names were on those emails that circulated along with a couple of anti-racism task force members and 8 teachers. It's truly disgusting to see you collecting names of parents and cyber stalking them. When I asked for the information that was mine to begin with, I got a heavily redacted request, hundreds of pages of emails, heavily redacted, nothing to see. But there were a couple of things to see. When parents have a concern and they can't come to you to ask you straightforward questions and have those questions answered honestly, we're going to do it in our own way because we employ all of you. And I would ask you all to reevaluate the curriculum, the racially incentivized curriculum you are imposing on these children. Thank you.
Ms. Hopkins, I have no idea what this Google Vault of information.
Neither do I.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I've not seen it. I don't know what it's talking about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no idea.
Never mind.
We can talk.
No, I just wanted to.
Can I comment?
The spirituality. Probably.
I can't comment. I'm in the dark. I have no idea what is being said. I have seen no evidence of any of this. Thank you.
Any other public forum? Thank you.
Why haven't you had any meetings for the, why haven't you had a meeting since last June for the CALA program or special needs? And the committee, why hasn't anybody done anything about the special needs kids? You haven't had a meeting of the committee for CALA since June of last year.
Excuse me, ma'am, what's your name again? Is it Goldie
Williams.
Williams? Are you speaking?
And
Are you
also, I found out the Charahoe Act Revision Committee hasn't had a meeting since July 19th, 2006. You haven't had a Charahoe Family Accountability Subcommittee meeting since April 28th, 2005. And why is the bullying and the drugs coming into the middle school and the high school continuing to go on from the CALA kids that belong at the juvenile hall or ACI? And I have it for a fact from students that it's still going on. My son had to deal with it when it was Rise.
Could you please repeat the committees you were talking about?
I'm talking about the CALA program.
We don't have a subcommittee for that here.
There is one.
Oh, okay.
I got it off your thing. I don't have it.
Not the
I
school
must have left
committee.
that part out, but there hasn't been since June.
I think it was in the business section.
Yeah, the business section. If you look in your Charahoe business section.
Did you read that?
Yes. And how much
There is-
are you getting paid for each student for getting a vaccine and having to wear a mask? For each student?
I may be able to answer the CALA question. The CALA meets 4 times a year, and we met in June. We are planning on meeting again in about 2 or 3 weeks, but we only meet 4 times a year.
No, but how much a student are you getting paid for them to get a vaccine and to mask them? I've had the personal
Ma'am, you-
experience with the masking. I
It's
had
that-
trouble
that-
breathing on an airplane and they still made me wear a mask, a regular mask, and I had trouble breathing at my legs. Even with a doctor's note,
Thank you.
and still.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. Would you come? Would you come to the podium, please, and introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, my name is David Lally. I live in Richmond, Rhode Island. And I recently sent a letter to every member of the school committee. And I'd like to read that, if I may.
You have 2 minutes,
It'll
sir.
take a
You
few
go
minutes.
ahead.
As a taxpayer in the town of Richmond, I am deeply concerned with some of the material that I'm afraid is being taught to our school children. You are no doubt aware of the push in recent years by our American educational system, backed by the teachers' unions, including the NEA, to have, shall we say, alternative curriculum taught in grades K through 12. From critical race theory to gender theory to perverted sexual education, these constructs have worked their way into our schools in a treacherous manner with little to no oversight by the parents, who should be the first to know. Radical college professors over the past few decades, like devious snakes, have indoctrinated first young teachers, then the teaching community in general with these dangerous concepts, which slowly and slyly and covertly work their way through the faculty and down to the very youngest, and most vulnerable students are kindergarten children. These young, naive minds are being confused by instruction that they can change their gender if they so desire, and that if they happen to be white, that they are privileged and inherently racist and need to make amends. But that's only the beginning. As the children grow, they are exposed to more and more blatantly racial critical race theory philosophy. No, they don't have a book in class called Critical Race Theory, but the doctrine still works its way into teaching, infiltrating social studies, literature, and history classes, where the principles of the 1619 Project that falsely teach America was founded on slavery and are brought to bear in the classroom. Little by little, in subtle ways, the children slowly are being fed lies that their country is inherently racist and that they should be ashamed rather than proud of the founding, that they themselves need to be ashamed or feel victimhood depending upon the race or gender they are born with. These are destructive lies that can no doubt have damaged the self-esteem and confidence of millions of young people, our national treasure. But if that weren't enough, instruction is given in matters that should be private between a parent and child, only with a counselor of the parent's choosing if necessary. I'm talking about gender transition and sex education. Students are taught that gender transition is normal and that they have an inkling that they might not be comfortable in the sex they were born with. They are encouraged with options to transition and reasons to do so rather than counseling or consultation with parents. And if all that weren't enough, pubescent young people are exposed to books and materials that can only be classified as obscene. They are taught to be promiscuous, all this out of sight and mind of their parents. The thrust of this propaganda is to confuse and confound our young people, to get students to hate themselves and hate their country. There is no other purpose behind this wicked indoctrination. They are being fed lies meant to harm and turn them against social norms. The extent of these malicious teachings may not be great in Charahoe schools, as I've indicated, but nevertheless, do not believe that they don't exist. There are no doubt elements of these aspects in our school system. To close our eyes to their presence would enable it to grow insidiously. I am calling for a heightened awareness on the part of the school board to ferret out this brainwashing wherever it is found and at whatever level. Parents need to be empowered to know exactly what their children are being taught, what books they are reading, what activities they are participating in, down to the minute details. These are public schools. There are no privacy matters of student and teacher interaction that should be kept lawfully from the awareness of parents involved. Parents who request it need to be able to find out exactly what their children are being taught, including syllabuses, textbooks, library books, and other materials, physical and electronic, down to the very last detail. I call on this school board to set regular agenda as a topic at your meetings of transparency in the school curriculum to families and to pursue this vigilantly until no stone is unturned or roadblock broken through. As you know, you serve the interests of the families and citizens who pay taxes, not the teachers' unions. We demand full accountability of what the next generation is being exposed to for betterment of the society and the propagation of values we believe in, not values of some woke culture that would like to see our country destroyed. These are profoundly serious matters and should not be brushed aside or addressed haphazardly, but with all the vigilance and determination that you can muster. One last thing. The United States of America is not a systemically racist country. That is a wicked lie being taught to demoralize and infuriate young people, and it is heinous. Take it from me. I grew up during the civil rights movement. We all respected Dr. Martin Luther King because he spoke common sense and truth. His dream of a nation where people are judged not on the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, for all intents and purposes, has been reached. His dream has been reached for years now, but the woke culture today would repudiate all that Martin Luther King fought for. These radicals would turn his dream inside out, upside down, and backwards. They are traitors to Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, and liars to our children. Don't let that nightmare happen. Thank you. So I would urge the board to take a close look at the curriculum, to find everywhere and anywhere that you see these teachings of racism, that our country is racist, that our country was founded on racism, or gender theory, to look closely for it and to ferret it out and to serve the parents who who, like the other person said, pay your salaries. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, closing the public forum, we can move on to business items. Thank you.
So item A is the audit subcommittee terms. Of concern arose from the audit subcommittee regarding vacancies. In researching the subcommittee, which is not a requirement of the Charahoe Act, Finance Committee minutes of May 27th, 1992 include a motion that was made, seconded, and approved for the Finance Committee to recommend to the school committee that it make the composition of the audit subcommittee to include 1 financial knowledgeable person from each town and 2 school committee members, all 5 appointed by the school committee. An amendment was made, seconded, and approved to include that there be staggered 3-year terms for each member. The Charahoe School Committee minutes of June 15th, 1992 include a motion which was seconded and approved to approve the Finance Committee's recommendation that the audit subcommittee be composed of 5 members, 1 financially knowledgeable individual from each town, and 2 school committee members, all 5 members to be appointed by the school committee, and there be staggered 3-year terms for each member. The subcommittee currently has 1 financial knowledgeable person from each town appointed by the school committee and 2 school committee vacancies. It appears what may have happened over the years is that school committee members who were serving on this subcommittee were not reappointed for additional terms on the school committee or chose not to run again, but remained on the audit subcommittee as representatives of their town. In consultation with legal counsel, I am recommending the following: that a motion be made to rescind the vote taken at the school committee meeting on June 15th, 1992 regarding the recommendation from the Finance Committee pertaining to the audit subcommittee. And 2, that another motion be made to approve the Finance Committee's recommendation of May 27th, 1992 as modified, that the school committee make the composition of the audit subcommittee 5 members, 1 financially knowledgeable individual from each town, and 2 school committee members. All 5 members will have terms expiring in December of every even year, as school committee terms could possibly end in November of that year.
Oh, you want separates?
I think one is going to be one motion and
Okay.
2 is going to be.
So, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we rescind the vote taken on the school committee meeting of June 15th, 1992 regarding the recommendation of the Finance Committee pertaining to the audit subcommittee.
Second. So there's been a motion and a second to rescind the vote taken at the school committee meeting of June 15th, 1992 regarding the recommendation of the Finance Committee pertaining to the audit subcommittee. Any questions or discussion on that matter?
I'll be abstaining. It's not clear to me why this is necessary, but that's just my opinion.
That's why we have a discussion. Yes, Brian.
So my understanding of this, all we're doing is adjusting the staggered year portion so that the terms automatically terminate in December of each year, so we don't have
Each other, right?
periods of time when it's not
Correct.
correctly staffed. Okay, so
Correct.
that's the only thing we're changing is
Right.
it ends every year in December.
And then to make sure that we have 2 representatives.
From the school
From the school committee, yes.
Which we do every other year.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So we made that first motion.
Mhm.
So we're going to rescind the vote taken at the school committee of June 15th, 1992. So those in favor? And opposed, abstentions? We got 1 abstention, George.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the Finance Committee's recommendation of May 27th, 1992 as modified, that the school committee make the composition of the audit subcommittee 5 members, 1 financially knowledgeable individual from each town, and 2 school committee members. All 5 members will have terms expiring in December of every even year, as school committee terms could possibly end in November of that year.
I second that motion.
Thank you. So there's been a motion and a second to approve the finance committee's recommendation of May 27th, 1992, of the composition of the audit committee to change to terms expiring December of every even year, as school committee terms could possibly end in November of that year. So any discussion on that motion? Those in favor? Any opposed? Abstained? Abstentions? George is abstaining. Thank you. Okay, so now B.
So this is for the appointment of 2 school committee members to the audit subcommittee. So I recommend that the school committee appoint 2 members to fill the vacancies that exist on the audit subcommittee. This subcommittee meets 2 to 3 times a year to review and approve the audit prior to being acted on by the school committee. This subcommittee will be included on the list of school subcommittees, and vacancies will be filled as they occur, so that we do not run into this issue again.
So,
Go ahead.
so I have a question. The previous vote was every 2 years. So, but it says every even 2 years. So the premise is not this coming December, the following December, correct? But we
don't
have,
school committee members now.
but we gotta nominate some people now.
Right.
But the point is, we're gonna possibly lose some people next November.
Correct.
So if they're on this subcommittee, then they won't be on it for approximately a month.
Yeah, that's the idea, I think. So that
Okay,
if your term ends in November with the election, you roll off. the
I
following
just
month.
wanted to ask this
Because in
question.
the past, what happened is a term ended for whatever reason, but yet the person stayed on
Right.
indefinitely.
And represented their town.
Okay, as long as we're aware
But
of
I think
that.
we also have to figure out a stagger, because there's 2 vacancies now. And if we appoint 2 people now, are they in for the same term, and do they both then potentially roll off at the same time, and we're continuing in a non-staggered way?
Yes.
I would just say that's a great suggestion, because audit timing will be right around that November timeframe, so it'll be helpful to have, if we can have a quorum that recommends to the school committee the audit results, that's helpful. So that staggered idea is helpful.
Yes, Ryan?
But isn't this corrected effectively if you have every election, the school committee meeting immediately afterwards, you have the subcommittee review and update it, then you don't have any,
Shouldn't be a lag. Or
you don't have any gaps missed.
You just have to ensure that it's
Just make
on
sure that it's
in the
on.
following
Right.
week.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it has to be a standing, okay.
These are all good points, though. So don't forget.
Right, because we can appoint someone today, but like Mr. Stahl, they could leave, they
Correct,
could
right,
not run again.
Right.
So if we do what Ryan is suggesting, we could mitigate that issue.
Right. So in the past, I know that we've had, anyone would like to volunteer for the audit subcommittee? Brian, too?
Chair,
Yes.
I don't mind volunteering for
Okay.
this.
Did we, I'm trying to, did we approve that appointment yet? Recommend the appointment, is that what we're doing? Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, to approve Ryan. Okay, so I'd like to take Ryan's, yes,
Chair, I make a motion to
thank you.
nominate Mr. Callahan,
I
Dr.
second
Callahan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Callahan, thank you. There's been a motion and a second to recommend Mr. Callahan to that committee. Those in favor? Anybody against, abstaining, or recused?
I don't see any more hands.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan, for
One more.
volunteering. Okay.
I'll go for it.
I'm
I'm sitting closest to Ryan, he's twisting my arm, you can't see it.
Yeah, he's kicking you under the
There we
table.
go.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion to nominate Mr. Legori.
And I gladly second
Thank
that.
you. There's been a motion and a second to nominate Mr. Legori to the second appointment to the school, to the audit subcommittee. Thank you, Mr. Legori. Those in favor? Any abstentions or recusals?
Must be
That's
that side of
unanimous.
the table.
Thank
What
you
do
so
think
much,
of that?
gentlemen.
You
That
know,
was-
that side owes us something.
Okay. And thank you, Jonathan.
The next item is the traffic concerns at drop-off and pickup times. This was noted by David Stahl at the last meeting regarding congestion at drop-off and pickup times at the schools. Chair Lyle requested an update on this issue, and Ned is prepared to provide this update to the committee.
Shall we? So we've, as you probably know, and you've heard feedback from parents, we've been struggling with some transportation issues this year. We've revised the bus times about 10 minutes earlier to improve pickup here at the campus. We've also revised the Richmond schedules so that we incorporate another bus there and reduce our late buses. We're still able to meet the late bus stops, but move one more bus into the rotation. That should improve the on-time performance. Today was the second day of the Richmond adjustment. As far as the traffic pattern around the campus, as we discussed at the last meeting, we've got a few too many cars that are lining up out front. One of the things that we're working on to implement hopefully soon would be to take the traffic pattern as it exists now, which runs up, around, in a serpentine in front of the middle school, and continue that route around to the back of the middle school where the exit from the auditorium is, and have parents pick up from that point. They would then load up their cars, move around behind where the bus loop is. Intent is to have a monitor at that point. Monitor then would then be checking for when buses need to exit, stop the parent traffic, let the buses exit, and then let the cars continue on. The logic behind that is to take hopefully 40 to 50 cars off of Switch Road, and by running them through the campus, have that parking take place inside the campus. The thing we can't control is when parents arrive. The more parents that arrive, the earlier they arrive, the more backed up that spot gets.
Ms. Silveri?
I don't want to stop.
Sure,
you if
no,
you're not
that's
done.
good.
I think that's an interesting idea. So you would keep that serpentine route to add volume.
Exactly.
I think I like this idea. So they exit over there instead of over there.
Correct. They exit by the
The only
fields.
part that I'm curious about is the last two things you mentioned, controlling parent arrival time. If you're going to let parents exit up until the time the buses go and then stop them, then it's going to be a mad dash at 1 o'clock and 12 o'clock and 11 o'clock to be first online so you don't get caught in the buses. Now, as a family that does child pickup, I'm willing to suggest you hold everyone until the buses are done. And that will negate the rush to get here first. Because I'm worried that if you say, you know, whatever, on average, the first 10 cars will get out before the buses, you're going to have a mad rush of people every day trying to get here as early as possible. And I think 2 hours early won't be unreasonable.
And right now, they're lining up.
The other piece, and I just happened to pick my daughter up for the first time the other day, and I hadn't seen this in past years. I was shocked at all the cars parked on the other side of the road. I had not seen that in years past.
Yeah.
And coming out, so I come out and make a left, it was like driving through a tunnel. And if I had to go this way I have a little car. If I had to go this way in a F-150 or something, and a bus was coming this way, I'm not sure we would have fit. I mean, I've never seen cars parked on the other side of the road.
So they're parked waiting to get into line.
They were parked waiting
Yeah.
mostly for high schoolers.
I did see
So
that.
they're parked
last
right out
week.
here on the farm side.
Okay.
Plus there were cars parked on this side. And that, in years past, that's never been the case. So I don't know if that will help that issue. That might be a separate issue. And I'm guessing that's because there are more parent
That's-
pickup standards.
That's the unknown is
Because this pickup loop here, I think, is far worse. You're basically, there's no room. You're stuck in the street. It's really dangerous. But I do like your other idea quite a bit.
the only problem with holding with the buses is, you know, will we hit capacity? Because then we're at the same problem
Yeah.
if we have the backup into Switch Road.
Okay, who's Mr. Day and? Thank you.
I think, I agree with Gary. I've been around enough of these schools, and I think one of the problems is we make it too convenient for parents to abuse the privilege that we give them. My understanding is we're having trouble getting staff members to monitor the traffic around the school. Is that correct or not correct? We
Not at the middle school, but at the high school, yes.
well, we normally have 6 people on the campus here. We don't have 6 anymore, right?
Correct. Still open.
You, nothing against the individual out there that directs traffic in and out of there, but we have a school resource officer per contract says that he will be here 10 minutes after school is over with. Maybe that would be a better use of his time, his 10 minutes, to have him out here at the corner of Switch Road and the exit here to have a better control and maybe authority figure out there controlling the traffic. Because the times that I've been by here, the individual tries their best, but you know, sometimes when you're coming towards Wood River Junction and you're the only car on the road and somebody stops you to let a bus that's back here in front of the high school make that turn, makes no sense. Because it just, if it was 10 cars behind me, that's 10 cars that would be stopping. To me, it's obvious that they have no training in how to direct traffic. So we either get them good training so they can direct the traffic in a more efficient manner, or we use our SRO, 10 minutes that's required by the contract we have in the town of Richmond, to go out there and direct the traffic. That would be my suggestion, because I think what your plan is good, but I think that we should not be making it that easy for the parents to potentially be in a rush and broadside or rear end a school bus or something along that line. And that's why we separated most of these campuses. The school buses and the parent pickup don't interact with one another. And now you're suggesting that they will be interacting with one another. So I think that's a very good suggestion that Gary made.
Yeah, I like the suggestion too, but I think the traffic will flow better, but I haven't been here at dismissal. Why would cars be lined up both ways out here? Are there kids coming out of school getting into those cars? Or are they waiting to
All
get
the
into
cars
line?
I saw had a driver in the driver's seat, so they were picking up someone.
What's happening is the middle school parents are coming in to the main campus entrance, and the
Mhm.
high school parents are lining up on the other side so they can go around into the loop to pick up.
Oh, okay.
So, and again, the campus was designed for buses, but many of our parents are choosing not to use the bus, which we understand because of the way the closed contacts were and the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's doubling the capacity. Last year, you had 25% not on campus. Now you have 100% on campus.
And Switch Road was never designed for
Now,
any of
Chief
this.
Johnson, he's been involved in all these conversations as well, and the directing of the traffic. The issue is there's nowhere to go to put them.
Okay.
Mr. LaGory?
Thank you. I want to just two things. I want to follow up on Bill's point about directing traffic. I think he's so right. Because I brought my kids in for many years, and I'm sorry, I don't know their names, but there was a gentleman over here. So when you pulled in, Jerry Off was down here, and then up at the stop sign, you had a gentleman up there who really was on top of things and did things well. I think there's some new staffing now, and I was a little surprised when I came in at how free-flowing things were, let's say. The other thing, though, Ned, I'm just thinking with this new system you're suggesting, and I may not have my bearings straight, but that means the parents are going to come out on the other side of Cala, between Cala and the track. Which is that where a lot of the juniors park? Are the students that park in that area?
Depends, some.
So I'm just a little nervous about
Young
like where they
drivers.
come out now. It's well controlled, right? The students have a walkway, and they more or less abide by that. There's people there. It's controlled. Over here, the parents are going to be coming through a parking lot with kids coming out and about and pulling out into the same exact flow of traffic. And especially if they're juniors,
Learn driving.
very inexperienced drivers. Maybe you guys have done this, but it might be worth a day or two just kind of walking over that time of day, watching traffic and human
We're
flow.
spending a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm guessing
did-
you've done that.
Yeah.
It makes me a little nervous on that
We
part.
did observe, and there is impatience at that bus loop.
Yeah,
So there's a monitor there trying to move students onto the buses as well as retain
right. You have the students in the
traffic.
buses, the kids getting in their cars.
And
Yeah.
I observed impatience.
Yeah.
So it will be a challenge.
Yes, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. So I think in the immediate, I'd like us to consider kind of Gary's stopgap, that idea of clearly separating bus dismissal from pickup dismissal with a staggered time. I drop my girls off in the morning, but I don't do pickup in the afternoon. But the issue is the same at both sides of the day. I can see how that would work. I could see how that would work. Bigger picture, now that we're at 100% capacity, maybe this can also start a conversation, sorry, as I speak, I fog, around developmental start times, right? So we have fifth graders in the middle school, right? And we have 18-year-olds at the high school. And what we know developmentally is that actually start times are best for learning when it's flipped. That younger children are more awake in the morning and ready to learn, and adolescents, emerging adults need more sleep and they learn better as it's staggered. Now, we've never been able to do anything about that because of logistical issues, athletics after school, et cetera, et cetera. So if we have the opportunity to take a big picture, kind of study, if we kind of started with Gary's idea and then also differentiated the middle school from the high school on the grounds of their developmental needs, we might have better academic outcomes, we might have better mental health outcomes, and our parents and the drop-off might be safer as well. I know that's not an immediate thing, that's more long-term, but maybe this is an opening to start that exploration.
Yes, Mr. Luzon.
Mr. Draper, did you get to the last bullet item?
I don't think he's gotten to a couple of them.
Or where did you leave off?
Thank you, Mr. Luzon.
When you went to sleep here.
I have a couple of questions. I don't want to wait for it to be over.
So we are in C. We're talking about
Yes.
the agenda. Yeah, so I'm here to continue talking about the traffic, or we can go into ESER.
No,
He's not
on
on
your,
the-
on your memo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think
I
necessarily.
have a couple of questions, but I wanted you to
Oh,
finish.
okay.
Go ahead, Greg.
Go ahead.
Okay. What is SK Tech?
South Kingstown.
I understand the
technical
SK
students.
for that. What is tech?
A career and tech student.
Career and technical.
So
Charahoe Tech.
their bus is coming, we're sending a bus up to bring students there?
I'll let Ned fill you in on that.
Yeah, so what happened is, my apologies, now I got the memo. Statewide contacted us the day before school started to inform us that they were not going to be able to meet a variety of routes. At that time, it is the responsibility of each school district to move their own students to the destination. So in this case, South Kingstown has, it's just under 30 students from their jurisdiction that attend Charahoe Tech. My counterpart at South Kingstown reached out and said, we just got the word from statewide. Is there anything we can do to work together? Ocean State serves both districts. They're different contracts, they're different equipment, so on and so forth. However, what we did is we talked to Ocean State and said, all right, is there any way we can cobble something together? So what we came up with was a combination. We do group stops, which we picked 3 points on Charahoe's regional routes that were closest to South Kingstown. We designated those group stops, so an availability for parents if they wanted to drive to that point. And then we also provided one of our buses running students to Narragansett. It's got excess capacity, particularly on the way there. So we have time where we can take them from Charahoe Tech to South Kingstown High School, and then it continues on to Narragansett. In the morning, the South Kingstown Depot has a bus available to move the students right after it goes to the high school. The problem with the system is the students are missing instruction time from when the South Kingstown High School starts till they get here to Charahoe Tech. It's not our fault. It's technically the responsibility of the district, but we're all in the same boat, meaning every district has some form of transportation issue. So now we found a way to move the students back and forth between jurisdictions, but it's not ideal.
And could you elaborate a little bit more on the Richmond Elementary routes? I don't understand how improving them would affect the busing here.
So what was happening was we adjusted our times for the district overall by 10 minutes. So by starting 10 minutes earlier, the buses leave the campus as quickly as possible. Then they go to their elementary routes. Richmond has some pretty spread out routes.
Right.
We actually still have one route that doesn't have a whole lot of students on it, but because of the physical distance, it's still running about 5 to 8 minutes behind. So we're trying to come up with a solution for that.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah, the new route started today at Richmond. We took a late bus offline from the main campus and moved it to the Richmond routes. And that started today. So we're hoping and we're monitoring the GPS. We may have to shave one more stop, which they're closer, to be able to make sure we meet the time.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Day?
I have a question about the statewide contract. The statewide contract is obviously the state awards that contract. There's no penalty for them or
Consequence.
use areas where we don't have to incur any expenses or anything like that. Are we incurring some additional expenses with what you've got going there?
So by and large, this will be a topic for another meeting. But the statewide system charges us for whatever they provide us. And last year we found with the diminished bus capacity, we could do a lot of the routes for less cost than the statewide system could provide. So last year, our bus services with statewide were limited to a few McKinney-Vento students who were impacted maybe on a temporary basis, perhaps DCYF, and then the out-of-district private schools. But to your question, we only paid for those services. We were able to diminish our impact from the state by doing as much as we could with our capacity.
So it's another case of the state helping us.
Well, they have told us that because legislation says that they can't reimburse us if we're able to, they basically told us in the emails that no, we can't provide our own plan and pay for it and then get reimbursed because of legislation. So Ned and I reached out to Representative Kennedy and Senator Algier. They were unaware of the issue with statewide that's happening. This is across the state. But they're willing to listen and help. I actually spoke with the governor yesterday with the same topic and asked to have that conversation with him as well, because in essence, what we've said to RIDE and statewide is legislation says you have to transport and you're not. So we're offering a solution, working together with South Kingstown, and you keep telling us no. And we have students who are impacted by them refusing to allow us to be reimbursed for the funding that we would need to be able to get the students here.
Well, that's the same state that keeps cutting our categorical aid on transportation.
Correct.
That's the same state of Rhode Island. Right? So either way, we're screwed. Plain English.
Mr. Luzon?
So I got one last question.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully, when the pandemic is all behind us, hallelujahs, do we anticipate most of this just disappearing? Or should we be talking with DOT and maybe get a passing lane, or should we be
Good question.
thinking of changing?
To Lisa's
something?
point, I think a long-term plan, the hardest part about separating main campus is that you now have buses that need to get to elementary school. So the time impacts all of the schools. So you would in essence need more buses. But there, a long-term plan, because this is in fact a state road, we would need the support of our legislation to be able to think differently about how this works.
There was, one of the things that came to light when looking at this back of school plan was my understanding is the campus used to be split up. It had different sections before there was a loop around the whole thing. So there may be a chance to look at traffic patterns. You know, for instance, 2 loops kind of thing where traffic's able to circulate, but that would be part of the master plan. Yeah, that would not be a quick fix.
Well, one last thing, when we built Cala, I mentioned them. Raised walks really slow traffic down. You were concerned about vehicles coming out of here. And I didn't hear sports thrown in there at all, and almost every athlete crosses that roadway over there. But raised walks do slow, but they cost money. And it does slow traffic down, so I'm just throwing that out there. So, thank you.
Mr. Draper, you done with, would you have any other comments you'd like to make before the meeting moves on?
No, I think that's it. The only other piece is we're gonna do a, brief transportation presentation in about a month that will, touch on these questions about the statewide system and cost.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Just
Mr.
have,
Gordon.
just a thought
No.
that just came up.
Please.
Is there an opportunity maybe to engage some of the engineering folks at URI to just, who study, I don't know if it's civil or whatever engineering, just to come and spend some time looking at our flow and making some recommendations? I mean, it's a resource that might cost nothing. Could be a senior thesis project, and they can come over and look and see and maybe come up with recommendations that none of us would even think of.
I think we're willing to.
Yeah.
Yes,
So Chair, with Gary's idea, maybe you and the superintendent might want to consider pulling the transportation subcommittee together for just kind of a meeting to just come together to brainstorm this, have a concentrated conversation where we can kind of popcorn all of these ideas, maybe invite any interested students, because it would be a public meeting anyway.
Right.
Maybe reach out to the engineering chair, right, to see if their students would be interested, and give us a forum where we could spend, an hour or two just thinking about this together. You have that subcommittee.
that's a great idea. Good recommendation.
Yeah, super.
Yes.
And I'm honest,
Love
and
it.
I'm not
Yes.
volunteering others to do that. I will show
Yeah,
up
we already
and do
felt
it.
that pain.
Yes.
I'm on the committee.
So we will,
Craig, you're on it with me too, right?
so, yeah,
With
Superintendent
Ryan.
Craig will
Ryan,
do
yeah.
that. Thank you. That's a
Well
great
thought.
suggestion.
Okay.
Good thought. So are we on
So,
D?
yep, next item is our ESSER and ARP funding and next steps. Ned's gonna go through the memo that he sent in your packet that reviews where we've started, and then I will sort of give a brief review of our anticipation of our ESSER 3, which has not dropped from RIDE just yet.
Thank you. As noted in the memo, there's roughly $4.5 million in federal funds spread over the course of 3 to 4 fiscal years, depending on how we count them. The first of those funds was released as an immediate response from the state to the jurisdictions. That was $378,000 in COVID relief funds. Immediately after that, or right around the same time, there was $316,000 in ESSER funds. That's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. We applied all of that towards getting our transportation issues squared away. I don't know if everybody was here at the time, but we had to rectify agreements with our contractor because there was no transportation, therefore there were no payments. But throughout the state and throughout contracts everywhere, people are trying to figure out, all right, what's the overhead that's owed? And that's where we applied that money. ESSER 2 is currently in progress. That's roughly $1.2 million. If you recall from this year's budget process, we decided to take a chance that ESSER 2 would include curriculum. We also looked at our current spending of last year and said, one way or another, we'll make the curriculum happen. But we were able to remove that mandate from our funding for this current fiscal year. So far, that's worked out well. It's still consistent with Rhode Island's expectations of us, and it funds a mandate that they've put on the table for us. That will continue to be a theme. There's the Right to Read Act and a few other things that are coming up. Superintendent and assistant superintendent can speak to that in more detail, but those are commitments we're going to have to make. Last but not least is ESSER 3. That is the largest of these allocations. It's unclear yet exactly what stipulations RIDE's going to apply to them. They give us guidelines from both the federal and state requirements. I do expect that they're going to be fairly rigid. The ones prior were a little more relaxed. They were more focused on getting us open, getting us into school. The ones coming up are going to be very focused on learning loss. This district enjoyed a lot of in-person instruction time last year. A lot of districts did not. I'm sure in Rhode Island it's unclear at this point how bad that damage is going to be, but it's there. I think you're probably hearing or seeing students are struggling with a variety of issues and trying to keep up, especially now that they're back in person. And this investment is going to be applied to get them caught up. We've also got unfunded mandates, and I'll turn over to Gina and Mike for that.
So to Ned's point, the deputy commissioner met with the superintendents to discuss ESSER 3, that, they're anticipating it coming soon. And what she explained in O'Reilly is that ESSER 3 will have a tracking system. So there are specific buckets that must be aligned to the state plan, which is online through RIDE, and I'm happy to send that link, as well as the Right to Read Act. So there are things built in, so it's not like it's a pool of money that we'll have to show measurement, progress, etc. ESSER 3 is also tied to our back to school plan, which is required by federal law to be updated at minimum every 6 months. Our plan actually gets updated monthly, so we're in a good place with that. But overall, our thinking right now, based on what the state plan asks us to do, what we know so far about ESSER 3, is that it would be the focus on the high quality curriculum materials. They're asking us to prioritize those. The science of reading work, which, if you remember, it was actually pre-COVID that legislation came out, the Right to Read Act. So by typically you're not allowed to use federal funds for mandates like that, but in this case they are allowing it because of the level of need it will have in pushing our reading awareness forward. The professional learning to be able to implement our high quality curriculum material, instructional coaching, and learning support and intervention is what Ned said, basically those stopgaps. So I gave you a brief spreadsheet that shows really, our focus is the science of reading. We were lucky enough to get 3 grants from RIDE that allowed us to have multiple cohorts. We just got one for pre-K. We've had 2 others where we were able to start this work. And right now, free to all districts is the awareness training for the Right to Read Act. And that's basically your science teachers, your math teachers, elementary school teachers must be proficient. And that work will start next year. So this funding will allow us to do something that we would have had to put a local burden on with our taxpayers. We actually can move this into ESSER funding because it aligns to the state plan. We're also, they've also asked us to focus on the high quality curriculum materials, which the district has already made that a focus last year. We have that K-8 mathematics has been completed. So this work will be to ensure the continuation of that work, materials, professional development, as well as the ELA. And we still have to select our 9 through 12 mathematical resources, and the teams are working on that now. So again, a lot of legislation requirements from Rhode Island General Law. This money will allow us to do that, continue our work without putting the burden on our local budget. And then what we'll do in my October E update is we have a feedback form for our families and community members where we talk about the state plan, the priorities of the district right now based on the alignment to the state plan, and where our families feel the number one priority would be based on the list that I shared with you this evening. But right now, this is our big picture overview, and once we know exactly the funding, and like that said, we anticipate approximately 2.6 million, we'll come back with our finalized plan based on the feedback, school improvement team feedback, public comments here, etc. But again, it must align to the state plan and the work that's aligned in that. This is a sort of first sort of review of that.
Yes, George.
Couple of questions. One, does this relate to the $1 billion that the state of Rhode Island received from the federal government?
This, I think, is part of that package,
Okay.
correct?
And where are the ESSER 2 funds? Are they in a bank account or are they still being dispersed by the state? How does that work?
So those are dispersed by the state. What we do is, there's a program called Accelerants. And each quarter, we provide a report of what our spending was against those funds, and then they reimburse our account with the amount of money we request.
Those
So
are the
they
funds
have
that-
it in some sort of account.
correct, and they gave that to districts in August.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Draper or for Superintendent Picard? Thank you very much for that presentation. Thank you.
So this next item is review of orientation process for new school committee members, and this was requested by Gary Legori.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Picard. So this item came up mainly just a function of my introduction to the committee. And I recognize that when I joined the committee, and I guess technically Sheila Grobert joined at the same time, it was at the height of COVID and the meetings were online, which I think was different than how the committee traditionally ran. So that maybe was part of what I found challenging. But I think there were a number, and still are, a number of things that I'm learning as we go that probably could be put into some type of small packet to orient new members. One thing that, because of the work I do professionally, things like Robert's rules, I'm relatively comfortable with, but I'm not necessarily sure all new members are. Just as one example. I remember at the first few meetings I attended, which were all online, there were many of us unsure which meeting to be in. Now, that was a function of the online piece. We don't have that here. We know to walk in that room. But I think that there could have been better communication around how, I'm kind of a nuts and bolts person. So just as an example, I was actually an early adopter of teaching classes online when I was a college faculty. And I would list step by step everything a student had to do in my class, literally from turning on your computer, logging into this, clicking this, right through to the end, not just assuming they knew how to turn on their computer, which, believe it or not, I had students sign up for online classes who didn't know how to turn on their computer. That's another story. So I think that's an important piece to, on the most basic level, is I think to just walk through the meeting structure so that the new members understand. We get 5 attachments each week, maybe just explaining where we go in the agenda. And, we have the main agenda here, but this part goes with this attachment and this part goes with this attachment. And maybe explaining the role of the chair versus the role of the superintendent versus the role of the members. What's Donna's role? I happen to meet Donna once in a hallway because her granddaughter knew my daughter. And so I knew who she was, but not necessarily her role. So I think those are just the logistics of the meeting. And then I think there's the broader picture around professional development. How does that play into it? What are the requirements? How can those be met? Things like that. So I've been on many sides of meetings for the last 25 or 30 years. And I realize that over time, sometimes you just forget and it gets easy to just keep moving along. And new people sometimes maybe feel a little shy about speaking up because I don't want to feel embarrassed that I don't know. I don't mind doing that. If I don't know, I'll let you know. But I think it's just an important collegial thing to do for our future members as we look ahead to November
That's a great idea.
or replacing, Dr. Stahl and others as these times come. It will make for such a smoother transition for everyone.
It's a great idea. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Great idea.
Yeah. Dana, chances are I'm going to say what you're going to say, so either one of us can go.
Go ahead.
So this is my 6th year. So when I was a newly elected member, Mr. Ritchie called me, invited me to come for a campus tour, personally onboarded me. I think Craig might have been the chair at the time. And the Rhode Island School, the Rhode Island Association of School Committees was not only kind of our main source of information, but Mr. Ritchie and the superintendent, again, I think it was Craig at the time, actually arranged for a member to come to a school committee meeting to provide us personally with an overview. And then that also counted, I believe, right, Donna, for like 2 or 3 hours of our 6 hours as well. So I think there's
Great.
a pathway to doing that again.
Yeah.
And then your piece being then, okay, then specifically in Charahoe, our agenda actually looks different than South Kingston's
Right.
agenda. That looks different than Narragansett's in terms of its structure. But Robert Rules is consistent.
Right. And Gina did reach out and we did meet in advance. But you just reminded me of something else, Lisa, that, I started getting the emails from Tim Duffy and others. And I don't know who Tim Duffy is. At first, I thought it was probably spam because that's everything else I get. So,
Right.
those
Yeah,
are just
sure.
little
But
things that would be good to know.
He's not spam.
That's cracking us up on this side, Lisa, by the way, because her tail's poking out. It's hilarious.
Good girl.
Not right now.
I just wasn't finished, Linda.
Yes.
I just want Gary to be able to say what he was saying. So to follow up on that, I wonder do we use D2 Brightspace or Canvas? What's our LMS?
Canvas
Yeah.
for the schools?
Yeah. for
Yeah,
us.
Canvas.
Canvas. So along this idea, could we build a little module in Canvas that then school committee members could have access to?
That's what I think Gary was thinking.
Like an online one? Okay, great, that was it.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's actually where I was going. I think modules are great. It's a great way of instructing, and we could, all determine what topics need to be on those modules, but it's more structured than, I didn't get the call to the office and the tour, because it was in the middle of a session. So I think something very structured would be extremely helpful. We also were given a book, and I assume you were given the book as well.
I was not.
No? Okay.
I have one in front of me now, though.
You
It's
have
really
one?
big.
Yeah.
Intimidating.
It should be online.
Intimidating.
You have to memorize it by the next.
By the next
meeting.
meeting, okay, as
And
long as
there'll
not by
be a
tomorrow.
test, but otherwise, I think that I love your idea of creating modules that are structured for new people coming on.
Great.
Whether it's at the beginning of a full session or in the middle of it, it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Ms. Luzon?
So, I'm so glad this was asked, and I'm so glad at the last meeting, Mr. Swain brought up some points as far as our 6 hours, because our superintendent from North, they pronounce it North, right? From
No
North
comment.
Providence, basically our subcommittees that we belong to counts towards that, which I never knew. But it takes you a good year to really get up to speed
Yeah.
with the nuances,
Yeah.
just terminology alone.
Right.
And oftentimes having sessions like what I explained to Lyle is when you have new members, it's helpful when everybody sort of, for the edification of the group, does it again, because there's some of you that have been on for a long time, and there's things that change within the law. So knowing that where the changes, so it's usually a good practice whenever a new member attends, that there is a role with the whole group as well, not just with the individual. It's a way to make sure that we're all on the same page and we know where the changes are.
Good idea.
Oh, did we have
Yes.
some?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
No, I just wanted to make sure the
Yep.
committee
Yep.
was all, yes.
So because it sounds like we want to move forward with this.
Yes.
And we're going to have public comment. Is this something that, let me rephrase, who will develop the curriculum?
I'm happy to be part of a ad hoc committee to do that. if we all agree to
So
something.
we'll
like that.
develop it maybe with a consult from Ryask and a consult from,
Even John.
Even John would be
yeah,
willing to
okay,
do
great.
it too, yes. Do you have a comment
No,
before
I
I go
was
to
just
public?
gonna say, I would be more than happy to work on that as well.
Okay,
Starting with the topics and the, the big broad picture of what we need to know right from the get-go, but I would be more than happy to
Great.
work on that.
Thanks, Tom.
thank you. Any other committee member? Any other committee member interested in working with Gary and Donna? Yeah, Linda? Okay,
Great.
good. So you have a committee. Ms. Hopkins, yes.
Just from some of the parents I know, don't work with Tim Duffy. It's distance yourself away from him. That's just my opinion. And it's
Miss-
what we're
Miss Hopkins.
discussing as parents.
My,
So
out of order.
I didn't even know what she said.
brought it up. I don't
Sorry.
see it's out of order.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Legori. It's a great idea.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work, and thank you, Donna and Linda, for volunteering. Okay, good.
Next item is the homeschool 3-year comparison. This item was requested by David Stahl and was in your packet for discussion.
So I have a question on I think it's the third page of that, Ned. At the bottom, it shows the dates on which we approve, and I see 2 9/28s, and I see a 23 and a 25.
At the very bottom.
It's
Right.
at the very-
See, is that out of
in the blue, yeah.
Just there to check that you're checking.
My question is, why is there 2 lines there? We have two 9/28/2021 dates. One says 23, one says 25, the exact same date. I'm not
That's
sure.
today.
Yeah,
But it's listed twice with 2 different numbers.
correct. Is it broken out? I didn't,
Or is maybe one's supposed to be.
Is that rescinding?
It's because we added 2.
Could they be?
we didn't do a rescission.
9/21.
I can
We
answer that.
approved
Okay,
the-
Donna
the
can answer it.
Minutes.
Okay,
That I'm not sure.
I
about.
think I can
I'd have to
answer
talk
it.
to
okay,
for you.
Donna can answer.
Donna,
When she
methodology.
first gave me, when Nancy first gave me the packet, there were 23.
Correct.
2 more were added at the last minute. I think she forgot to take the 23
Okay.
out.
All right.
There were 25 that we approved.
Do you know if that 198's
I'd
reflective
have
of
to
the
add them
additional?
up, I
Okay.
don't know. But I do know that there
Okay.
were 23 up until the last minute and 2 more got added on. So that would be my guess why she just forgot to remove a line.
thank you.
Ms. Luzon?
And is there a reflection of rescinding?
My understanding is that based on the rescission tonight, it was, they were noted in here as well. So the 9/28 should be based on what was in front of the committee. She would change it if we came back and said something didn't pass. So it's
when
anticipation of this final.
voting on, you're trying to be polite with what takes place in executive session.
Got it.
But there was rescinding that we voted on minutes. So is
I
that
do believe they're
reflective in these
captured in here.
numbers?
That line's counted, I think.
In
twice.
anticipation of the
Twice.
vote, yeah.
Mr. Callahan, did you have your hand raised?
No, I think it had been addressed.
Okay, thank you.
you know,
Does anyone else have any questions? Donna's adding.
That did include both numbers, that 83.
Yeah, that extra 23 was counted.
Are the numbers pretty similar to what we saw last year?
Well, last year was heavily affected by COVID.
Right,
But if you look back to the year before, if I understood the table, it's
about the same, right?
double, roughly double.
Are you looking at 1920?
Yeah.
From 1920.
From
Does that sound about
1920,
right?
it's about
About
double,
roughly
yeah.
double.
I saw that.
Yeah, so our numbers this year for the current school year pretty much is on level with last year.
Yeah.
That's what I
so
meant.
it's-
They're on level with
Yeah.
last year, but doubled from the year
October
before.
1st of
Correct.
1920 was 105,
Right.
and this year it's 198.
Correct. Any other questions with the homeschool numbers? Okay, thank you. Oh, God, here's that. All
I
right.
think so.
Mathematically, the change was bigger.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I assume we're on consent agenda items,
Yes, we are, sir. Does anyone need anything pulled?
A1 and 2.
Okay, and Donna?
Yeah, A1 and 2, and I'm confused by year 2. It says the regular session minutes of tonight. That's not correct,
Oh.
right?
No, you are correct.
Okay,
Should be September
so
Or time
that
travel.
needs to be changed to the September 14th.
Do we do that in our,
Okay,
No, these are just your notes.
I'll just
So
our
when you
notes,
make
okay.
the motion.
We'll
you'll
just
use
say
the
September
14th.
14th.
okay,
Okay.
so yeah, I want
So
the,
A1 and A2 are being
Right.
pulled. Anything else? Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Draper.
Yep, H1,
H1?
we just had a modification to the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I make a motion to move the remainder.
I second it.
and there's been a motion to remove the remainder in a second. Those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions or recusals? That was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I make a motion to approve A1, the executive session minutes of September 14th, 2021. Approval of executive session minutes of August 10th, 2021. Minutes not sealed.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second to approve the executive session minutes of September 14th, 2021. Approval of executive session minutes of August 10th, 2021. Minutes not sealed. Any discussion on those minutes? Those in favor? Any opposition? Abstentions? 2 abstentions, Mr. Abbott and Ms.
Okay,
Chambers.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I make a motion to approve A2, the regular session minutes of September 14th, 2021.
Second.
thank you. There's been a motion and a second to approve the regular session minutes of September 14th, 2021. Any discussion on those minutes? No. Those in favor? Anyone against? Abstentions?
Absent.
Recusals? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I make a motion to approve H1, Public Water System Contract Operating Services to Northeast Water Solutions Incorporated, NWSI, at an annual price of $18,980 per year for 3 years and per contract rates for additional services as required, as noted on the memo from Ned Draper and NWSI contract, both dated September 7th, 2021.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second to approve the Public Water System Contract Operating Services to Northeast Water Solutions, Inc. Mr. Draper, you have a,
Just
I'm sorry. Oh,
Okay.
Is there coordination between this organization and the organization that's monitoring the wells in relation to the oil spill?
No, they have separate duties, so we test our drinking water with this company, and the other company is checking the remediation.
I know that, but is there any coordination between?
I have not, but I can talk to them.
Thank you. Mr. Draper, you wanted
Yep,
to
the
pull back.
only amendment to that motion would be subject to legal review.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There's going to be some slight modifications to the contract that's in your packet to the district's favor. So,
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So someone needs to make
Make
that
that motion,
amendment, please?
yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Uh,
Go ahead, Ms.
Chair, I
Conlon.
make a motion to amend the motion to include the word subject to legal review.
Second.
There's been a motion to amend the motion to include, subject to legal review. There's been a second, a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that amendment? No. Those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Recusals, abstentions? No, that was unanimous. Okay.
Have we-
Are we
As
done?
amended.
Everything
As
else?
amended.
Motion as amended.
We voted on it?
So we have to take a vote.
Okay, so take
Motion
as amended. So we're taking a vote on the motion as amended. Any discussion on that? No? Those in favor? Okay, any opposition, recusals, or abstentions? No, thank you.
Okay, so subcommittee reports, health and wellness has not met yet, but it will meet on Tuesday, October 5th at 4 PM in the high school library. We have flu clinics upcoming in October. We have our first one, actually, I shouldn't say our first one. In order, we have our first one at Charahoe Middle School, October 6th, 4 to 6:30, open to all community members. And there is a link on the main page of the website for those that want to register, and it will also be in my e-update on October 1. Hope Valley on October 7th, 4 to 6:30 in the cafeteria. We also have Richmond on October 21st, Charlestown on October 13th, and Ashway on October 26th. And like I said, the flyer is located on our main website and will be in the e-updates. All our nurses and school principals have this as well. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Camella to give the report regarding our recent professional development. We have a state PD day tomorrow as well.
Sure, our professional development plan for this school year is centered around the adoption and implementation of high-quality curriculum materials and professional learning to train our teachers in the science of reading with the Right to Read Act passed by the General Assembly. As you may recall, we have implemented 3 new curriculum resources, 2 for ELA through K to 12, and 1 in math that covers grades K to 8. On August 31st, we began our ELA professional development. This training was an overview. Oh, excuse me. That's just a mess. Yeah. Sorry, just having trouble with began our ELA professional development. The training was an overview provided by our vendors into reading and study sync. It also was an opportunity to dive deeper into each resource to learn more about the lesson planning, pacing, and assessment. On September 1st, we did the same with iReady and through grades K to 8. This professional development was also led by our vendors and covered the same topics about lesson planning, pacing, and assessments. Something that is consistent with any new implementation of a curriculum resource. After the initial PD, we heard from teachers that they wanted more professional learning with the curriculum resources, more time for planning with colleagues, and embedding social emotional learning. Tomorrow, our next PD day, we will focus on our ELA curriculum resources with additional PD and support from both interreading and study sync. November 1st is our next PD day. And then we'll have a math focus and professional development with iReady. We have had conversations with vendors for future PD to make sure that we're covering social emotional learning, planning, and lesson planning and assessment. I'd also like to mention that our teacher assistants are also part of the professional development of the new curriculum resources as well, as they support teachers and students. And while the depth of training differs, it's important that they have an understanding of the programs to better support teaching and learning. We've also started our Right to Read Act professional learning. The act requires educators to exhibit either proficiency or awareness, depending on their certification and or the grade level and subject that they currently teach. We have teachers this year that have begun the awareness training and will complete the training over the next 2 years. Proficiency training starts for our teachers in the fall of 2022. I also want to mention that as part of the work around the science of reading, we have also been accepted, as the superintendent mentioned, as part of a grant with the Department of Education to train an additional cohort of teachers in the science of reading. This group of reading specialists will have an opportunity to engage in the learning of the science of reading so that as more and more teachers are trained, they can support other teachers with their learning as well. This is our 3rd grant and group that has been accepted into this work over the last 2 years.
We have upcoming events, state PDs tomorrow, so it's an asynchronous learning day for all students, no live instruction. September 29th, Charlestown School Run for Funds is 12 to 3. On September 29th is also Richmond School Open House, K to 2, 5:30 to 7. September 29th, Hope Valley School Open House, pre-K through 1, 6 to 7:30. Charlestown School Open House, September 30th, all grades, 5:30. Ashaway School Open House, September 30th, all grades 6 to 7:30. September 30th, Hope Valley School Open House, grades 2 through 4, 6 to 7:30. October 4th through October 8th, Ashaway School Spirit Wear fundraiser. October 4th, Hope Valley School PTO meeting, 6:30 to 8:30. October 4th, Middle School Picture Day, 7:30 to 1. October 4th, Middle School Open House, grades 7 through 8, 6 to 8. October 6th, Ashaway School Picture Day. October 7th, Hope Valley Flu Clinic, as I mentioned earlier. October 7th, Cala Open House, 5 to 7. October 7th, High School Open House, 6 to 8. October 8th, Secondary Progress Reports issued for first quarter. And October 11th, no school for students or staff.
It's getting busy. We're on to our next item, request for future agenda items or legal opinions. Ms. Macruso?
So this item, I'm happy to be flexible anytime in the fall where there's enough time to have a good discussion around this. And I emailed you the link in advance. So, and I'd like to just have a moment to give some context. I was able to have a very productive email dialogue with the Swains, where we were able to focus on the things we agreed on as a district and as families. And what I've come to realize is that this public forum format is continuing to present a barrier where we want to have a conversation. We're saying we have to have courageous conversations, but this format shortens what can be said and we don't get to discuss. And so it feels like it's just one side against the other who gets to speak, and then there's never an actual exchange because we're following Robert's rules and ONA. So I thought, what can we do? The RIDE website, and I've sent you the link, I would like to include on a future agenda 2 resources that are recommended by RIDE around culturally responsive curriculum in our schools. So let's take this, and this is what our state wants us to do, not Lisa Macaruso, not Gina Picard, but our state for our public schools. And because there's so much there, I suggest we focus on the 2 areas of African-American history from civil rights to present day, because there's so much, right? We have to start where I feel like that might be the most relevant to the conversations we're trying to have. With that, which is why I'm asking, please take as much time as you need. I think having a visitor from RIDE to help answer some of the more systemic questions that beyond Charahoe, all the work that is being done with the blueprints and the curriculum and development and all of our experts at the state level can come and answer these with us. So the community can understand this is a community state initiative. It's not a one district matter. This is the direction we're all going in. So that's my request. It's to have a conversation on the curriculum that's on the RIDE website, civil rights to present day, and if at all possible, with a content expert from RIDE that can be present to engage in the conversation and answer questions from both parents, the community, the school committee members, and even any teachers that might want the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, Mr. Lazar.
This is a different type of request. Budget season is gonna be coming upon us here pretty soon. And I just want food for thought for Gina and Ned, and possibly even John, so we may have to vote on that, to think about adding another position to the Charahoe School District in reference to offsetting the workload that's been put on some of our secretarial staff, particularly Donna, in reference to all the requests for public information. I mean, from what I understand, she's been extremely burdened, so just something for you to think about. I threw John in there, so you tell me if we need to vote on this, because I don't know if this person would have to be, with the research that they would be doing, would they have to be,
Yeah, there is training that goes,
is there a legal requirement involved?
Well, there's specific training on how it's done correctly. Yeah, the process. How it's done.
So
we
that's
would
what I'm
need-
throwing out there.
Okay, just 1 second.
And
'cause we're gonna
along
probably
with that, does the person doing the request, I'm sorry, I thought she was looking at me. Does the person who's doing the request, can they be charged for at least the copying and the time that's spent? Does the district have to absorb that cost
Well,
of?
that's another, I think another issue, Donna.
Was
That's
that-
another issue, I think. I think
That's
what,
already set out.
that's
already
that's
determined
state.
in the law. yeah,
it's
in the law.
determined
It's
in the law. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Mr.
sorry.
Day.
I wholeheartedly support Lisa's, suggestion, but my suggestion would be that we hold a special meeting to do that on a special night. This is a very,
I was
this
thinking
is a
that too.
subject that I don't think we can cover, efficiently in a meeting night. There's gonna be too many other things going on, so if we're gonna do this, my suggestion would be that we hold a special meeting in the middle school auditorium so that plenty of the citizens can, participate and, be heard without being rushed to decide that we want to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock and everything else, which I'm pretty sure we would be, with that subject on the agenda and trying to take care of all the other business. So,
Good consideration.
I love that idea. Love
Okay,
it.
We're back to Mr. Luzon. I think you have to make a motion to, if you want John to be involved, and then we would vote on. it.
Well, then
No?
I make
How
a
does
motion
that-
to
how
have
does that
John
work?
involved.
John doesn't really need to be involved.
You don't think so, based on the level of redaction you've had to do?
No, he's just asking for a position to be added.
And that, I think we can do that.
I'm
without-
asking for the superintendent and for Ned, Department, Chair of Department of Finance, to think about it, I don't know if
Yeah,
John
It's
needs to
under our
be
purview. Yeah.
brought in because of whether there's any legal requirements because of some of the duties.
So that,
There's requirements that go with the position. That's part of the
Okay.
position that the state requires. I attend yearly APRA and OMA training at Roger Williams. So that's already set, that requirement.
yeah, so once we hire the person, that person would go to those trainings.
So
I
you
don't think we
understand
need-
my request?
Yes,
Right.
we do. Thank you. Anyone else have any future agenda items for requests? No? Thank you. Okay,
Ready?
we're ready.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I turn the table over to Ryan. It's his turn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's been a motion to adjourn in a second. Those in favor? Any opposition, abstentions, or recusals? That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Meeting's over.
I don't know how much of the video. Do you know what?